There we are. And welcome everybody to 2A Tuesday, episode number 5. This is Sandhills Shooter coming at you, and we've got a few people joining us tonight, and hopefully a few more will come along as the night goes along, because this is the last 2A Tuesday chat before deer season. And so we've decided to devote the night to talking about hunting some deers. And I don't think we're going to even get into the election. I don't think that there's been enough time yet in at least half the country to calculate any results. And the polls just closed in the Mountain Time Zone, and they're still going on the West Coast and in Hawaii. So we don't know anything yet. We can speculate. We can do the play-by-play stuff, but I think that's been beat to death already. So we'll let that one rest. If you came here looking for election talk, this isn't the place to go. So thanks for stopping by, and we're going to let everybody who's joined us so far in the panel go ahead and say hello. So we will start with the West Coast and work our way across the country this time. We'll start out with the tactical pickle, Mr. California Cucumber, Calaveras 32 Special.
Hey, Sandhills, appreciate the invite. And yeah, the polls out here are still open, so I totally understand wanting to avoid that disaster of a topic.
Yeah, it could very well take over the whole chat, and we wouldn't get to the deer hunting part. So yeah, we'll just forego that, and we'll just say this: if you haven't voted yet, and the polls have not yet closed where you are, then you better be on your way. That's all we have to say about that. So thanks for being here, Calaveras. Working our way across the country, we're gonna make a stop in the what's typically known as a flyover state, the great state of Nebraska, and check in with Travis P11.
Hey, man, appreciate the invite. Thank you so much. Shameless plugs as usual. Check out my Saturday morning podcast over on gunchannels.com. It's called Caliber Corner. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Central Time, variety of topics. Cover a little bit of everything. And yeah, thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool.
And then we will make our way over to the East Coast and go to the wonderful land of Mary. Maryland is where it's at. The kingpin himself, David Bowling.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything on your channel that you want to plug?
I mean, you guys can check out my channel and let me know what you think. I appreciate it. And make sure you check out gunchannels.com and guntube.org.
Absolutely check those out. And those of you that have not yet been over to David's channel, this dude comes up with probably the worst, the most grueling giveaways or entries to get into a giveaway that I've ever seen. So the next time you do one of those, I don't know if I'm still going to be able to pass that test and get everything done right, but I sure hope to do better in the next giveaway. So look forward to a few more subs over to David's channel, so he's got a good excuse to give some more free stuff away, because free stuff's always better. So all right, and of course, those of you that don't know me, my name is Sandhills Shooter, and we do this every Tuesday night. We try to anyway, 9 o'clock Central Time here on 2A Tuesday, and we talk about anything 2A related, and maybe a few things that aren't. We'll just kind of see what happens as time goes by. But tonight we are talking about hunting the deer. So I don't have a whole lot of stuff that I really have prepared ahead of time. You guys that have been here before, you know how my chats work. We just kind of shoot from the hip, and eventually an hour and a half has gone by, and we didn't even realize that we've been talking that long. So one thing I do want to know, though, just going around the horn here, first of all, is just do you have deer hunting experience? Travis, I think I know the answer. I believe you do, but we'll start with you.
Yeah, not a lot, surprisingly. I did not get into hunting until I grew up in a family that had guns in the family. When I went to college in Lincoln, didn't have a lot of access to public land. Did not get into hunting very much until I moved out to central Nebraska. I'm in Lexington. And at that point, I mean, there's so much public land around. I've only been hunting deer for about the last 10 years, surprisingly. But again, I would go shooting blue rock, skeet, clay pigeons with my buddies back home, go planking, stuff like that. But actual full on real deer hunting, yeah, only about the last 10 years, and that's it. And out of those 10 years, probably hunting 6 times because I took some time off from just life and got my master's degree, which took me away from everything for about 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience, but I do have experience, which I think is cool because I've been out open prairie, dense woodland, rugged hills, whatever. I've had a chance to hunt on various kinds of terrain and different kinds of weather.
Awesome.
So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's one of the great things about hunting deer in Nebraska is if you like hunting in trees, we've got, wooded areas. If you like open country, we've got that. If you want flat ground, if you want cornfields, if you want hills, hills made of sand, we've got a little bit of everything out here. So we can find a part of the state that is going to be good for you for whatever you want. As long as you're not wanting real rough, rugged mountains or desert. We haven't got much of that. So
yep.
All right, David, any deer hunting experience for you?
Zero.
Zero.
Come on out, bro. Let's go.
Something that's on the bucket list or something that
Well,
you're not really ever caring to try? Or
I shot a bird when I was a little kid and cried like a little baby and haven't shot anything since then. So I do all my hunting at the supermarket.
there's no shame there. There's no shame there.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of my
awesome.
friends are hunters and they always try to get me to go. And I think it's cool that they do it and I'm glad that they like it. It's just as long as the store is open, I'll go that way. So I'm definitely not anti-hunter in any way, shape, or form. It's just nothing that I get into.
No, that's very cool. I've got a very good friend who I many times had invited him to come deer hunting, and he never was into it. He just never wanted to pull the trigger on a deer. And then since then, I still don't know if he ever has a desire to rifle hunt, but he's taken up bow hunting, and he did harvest a deer last year. So he's not necessarily. It's not that he's unable to hunt or unable to kill an animal. I don't think rifle hunting is really his cup of tea, and that's cool. Not everybody wants to use a rifle. Not everybody wants to use a bow. I'm not a bow hunter just because it involves way too much stealth and patience. I have neither, and so I have to reach out from a little bit farther away. But no, that's cool. If you ever decide you want to give it a whirl, you're always welcome to come out and join us in Nebraska. We'd love to have you. You don't want to necessarily hunt yourself. You want to just come and tag along sometime. That's all right too.
Well, my boss lives on a like 150-acre farm, and the farmer told him and his son that they could shoot all the groundhogs and different stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I've been considering doing some groundhog hunting, and all this hog hunting I hear about is really starting to pique my interest. So it's not going to be the rest of my life that I go without shooting some type of creature.
Sure.
So I'm definitely open to it. It's just nothing I've done yet.
And just so you know, if you give it another whirl and you do decide after the fact that if you feel like you're going to cry like a baby again, I mean, like I said, there's no shame. Not everybody is a hunter, and not everybody should be. So it's just like everything else in the 2A community. We all agree not everybody should own guns, not everybody should go shooting. It's not for everyone, but a lot of people do enjoy it. So that's what we're here to talk about. Calaveras, deer hunting experience out on the West Coast?
Little bit. I've hunted south central Utah as well as public and private land here in Northern California. Uh, the Utah was an area, aspen groves and, overlooking, it was on a ridge line overlooking a valley. Uh, Out here in California, I've hunted a buddy's farm as well as I've hunted the 7 to 8,000 foot elevation of Sierra Nevada mountains. I've only gotten one deer out of the 4 seasons now that I've hunted total, but a little bit of experience.
Cool. No, that's all right. That's all right. Excuse me. Um, Alrighty. So before I go too far, I do want to just give a quick shout out to the few people I can see over here in the chat. Looks like on the YouTube side, we have got Calaveras is first, and some Dale guy is second. So welcome to Dale to being on the channel for the first time, I think. Tactical Bullfrog is in the house. We've also got Two Live Moo. We've got Travis P11 is there and here. Calaveras is there and here. And then on the gun channel side, I don't know if we have anybody yet. I haven't even checked over there. Nope, nobody joined us yet on the gun channel side. So there's plenty of room for people on both sides there. And then if you are watching right now, either on YouTube or on the gun channel side, go ahead and leave us a comment so we know you're out there. Looks like we've got a few people watching. Excuse me, throat's trying to go dry. And I think that Mr. Matt is still going strong on his broadcast right now, right? So maybe we're walking on Matt or he's walking on us a little bit. So maybe as the night goes, we'll pick up a few more people here. But for now,
I was over there. I told people to come on over here when they got done to check it out.
You're pretty cool for that. Thank you very much.
Yep. No, I mean, yeah. At least I could do. Well, they're talking election stuff right now. They're looking at all the numbers, which it's insane because you got the TV saying 60% in one area, and then the internet saying 3%. All the votes are in one area. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Just wait till it's done. I'd rather be surprised in the morning when I wake up.
Yep, exactly. Me too. And I'm not going to stay up late enough to check and see what happened. I can remember here 2 years ago, I actually had gone to bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night and had to answer the call of nature. Decided what the heck, picked up the phone, checked it, thinking, well, I guess I can go back to sleep knowing that Hillary won the election and she's going to be my next freaking president. And was very pleasantly surprised in the middle of the night. Woke up enough to shake my wife on the shoulder and say, hey, guess what? Trump won. And she's like, oh, good. And then we both went back to sleep. That was the excitement, the extent of the excitement in the Sandhills house for the elections 2 years ago. So yeah, that's hopefully we get a few more people that decide to come and talk about hunting instead of talk about Democrats versus Republicans. But one thing I do want to talk about for those of us that have been around the hunting, there's really three main hunting methods that I could think of. And one of the reasons I wanted to have this chat is just so that we could have idea sharing. Maybe there's something that that I haven't thought of. I've been hunting deer now for this will be the 25th year that I've been hunting with the same couple of guys, some relatives, cousins of my my dad, and I don't know how that works. They're cousins, 15 removed. I don't know how that goes, but I do know that we're all family, and they've been coming up and hunting on my dad's place for 25 years now this year, and so I haven't made it to every year. There's been some years I wasn't able to come up. I don't think they've missed one yet, so that's pretty cool for them. So I've kind of learned what I know about deer hunting from my dad's cousin, and he's got a son that's a couple years older than me. So we kind of both of us learned together back when we were younger. I was in high school and he was in college. So the three ways that I've basically come up with, and we'll kind of want to just find out what works for everybody. There's you can sit still, you can be in a stand or in a blind or just under a tree, or to be honest, my favorite blind has a 5.7 liter engine in it and a heater.
I like the sound of that.
But to be perfectly honest, where I hunt, the deer you're not that spooky. They're used to vehicles, it's a working ranch. And so seeing a pickup, seeing a vehicle, a Tahoe like mine, they don't care. And if there's a little snow on the ground, the Tahoe is white, it blends in fairly well, if it's not in the glare. So I don't mind sitting there in my blind, and it idles quiet. If I need to fire it up and there's no deer visible, then I try to make it to where I'm downwind of where I expect to see the deer, so they won't catch the exhaust. And even if they do, it's not that big of a deal. But sitting in one spot, whether it's a tree stand or a stand of some kind or a blind, what have you, is one option, and waiting for the deer to come to you or waiting for him to walk past. Second option is the spot and stalk, which you see a lot of on TV. Both of these first two, either people climb a tree with their cameraman, or they sit in the pop up with their cameraman, or camera person, excuse me. Or you'll see the ones that they see a deer and then they decide to go chase after this deer and try to get in a position to get a shot on this deer. And then the third tactic I don't see very much of on TV, and maybe they're doing it and not telling us, but this is a tactic that I grew up using, and it's been quite effective over the years if you have enough people. But we call it walk and block, and it's very similar to how a lot of people hunt pheasants in a cornfield, where they've got people walking down one end or from one end to the other, and people at the other end, with their shotguns waiting for the bird to flush. So if you've got a grove of trees, which in Nebraska there are a lot of groves of evergreen trees, cedar trees, what have you, especially in cow country, because they were planted with the express purpose of being a windbreak. And you can feed your cows in behind them so the cows are out of the wind. They're usually not too long, a few 100 feet long, and maybe 5 or 6 rows of cedar trees in there. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger, and sometimes the trees are a little older, they're a little taller. But for the most part, there's a lot of these shelter belts or windbreak around, and you'll have 1 or 2 people kind of set up off the corners. And of course, you talk about this ahead of time. You make sure you're not shooting at each other. And then whoever draws the short straw, or whoever was lucky enough to get their deer first, becomes the walker. And you drop that person off, you take the vehicle around to the far side, you get out, you walk back over to your spots, and the guy that got dropped out first starts walking through those trees. You don't go very fast, and you don't have to make a lot of noise. The deer know you're coming. And if there are any deer, then they will flush out of that grove of trees. And depending on which way they go, that kind of depends, that determines which guy gets to take a shot if the deer stops. And if, of course, there's a safe, ethical shot to take, then you can do that if the deer presents itself. So sitting in one spot, or the spot and stalk, or the walk and block, those are the 3 main methods that I can think of as far as deer hunting tactics. And I'm not going to go around the horn anymore. We'll just kind of go round table at this point. And I just kind of want to see what's working for everybody. And while everybody gets a chance to consider that, let's greet our newest panel member here. Squib Load has joined us from the great the great state of Michigan. Mitten? What is that thing? It looks like a hand. I got to hand it to you. Michigan's a cool state.
We've actually got 2 hands. If you look at the Upper Peninsula sideways, turn your hand sideways. Yeah.
Okay. Kind of a deal.
All right. Well, or flip it.
I don't know.
Perpendicular. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
Sure. I believe you.
I mean, we're not like another appendage.
Right.
Actually, named like Florida.
Right. You don't look like. Yeah, I get it. What experience do you have? You kind of missed it when we went around the horn first. What experience have you got deer hunting? Do you have any, a little bit, a lot of it? And then anything you want to plug, and then we'll talk about the tactics that work for you. So, or the method out of those 3 that I described. Go ahead, and you've got a lot of stuff to cover now.
Experience. I've had some people tell me some things about deer hunting, and I've gutted, or I've assisted gutting 2 deers. Plugs, Henry rifles, made in America or not made at all?
There you go. Always buy American if you can. Says the guy that owns a Glock. So never mind.
Made in Georgia.
I don't think mine was. I have to go check the side of it. I don't have it with me. I don't have it on me, but I'm pretty sure mine was not made in Georgia. I think it was imported to there, but that was it. So no real experience personally or firsthand with the deer hunting, but it sounds like maybe sometime before the year is over, you might be planning on changing that. Is that right, Squib?
Yeah, unless things go sideways again. I've had the carpet or the rug pulled out from underneath me a few times, and oh well. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not against hunting at all. As a matter of fact, I don't know why we're not loosening some of the hunting laws here so we can blast a few more of them things, because all they do is run out in the road and cause accidents. They're a nuisance, kind of. They're a tasty nuisance. But, besides all that, it's been kind of impractical with my schedule and my personal life and work and other things. And for all I know, between now and next week, something will come up. Always seems to.
Sure, sure, and that happens to the best of us. I think they call that life happening. So I think we've all been there, and we all understand that too. Um, so Calaveras, Travis,
Yeah.
when you guys have been out hunting, what has worked for you? Sitting in one spot, or getting up and moving, or combination?
Yeah.
It
Well,
kind of
Calaveras, you go first, man. Go ahead.
it kind of depends on what you're what the environment's like. That's for out here in the west, on the west coast, or even in Utah where I hunted. The spot and stock, or the modified version of spot and stock, being the road hunting, seems to be the most popular, and most effective because it allows you to cover large amounts of area.
Mhm.
Being that so much of our area that we can hunt, there isn't really defined trails. There isn't defined tree lines that you can, work on, this kind of thing. So you more or less can up your odds by covering distance. So that's for either way you're doing. Like when I hunted the private land here in California near Sacramento, it was a small enough area I was able to walk it. But then you'd spot a deer, and sometimes they were within range. Other times you had to try to maneuver to get within range, or to get within a where you can get a safe backstop or whatever the case may be. Versus when I like example when I was in just outside the town of Antimony, Utah. It was an area that's very large, and you had the aspen groves, and then open, desert grass. And that's where that one we hunted by, we would draw, most people would drive the roads, Forest Service dirt roads, and then they'd get out. It's actually where I got my deer. Uh, and once you're out, then you had to step a certain amount away from the vehicle or whatever. I don't remember exactly what the regs were. That was back in 2011. Before you could take your shot. So it really depends on what your terrain is and what your hunting environment would be.
Sure, sure. Well, and yeah, definitely the spot and stock method works better when you can see a long ways. Um, and I've never really hunted in real close timber before. There's a lot of wooded areas, a lot of creek bottoms where I hunt that are there's a lot of oak trees and things like that in them. But the trees aren't close like what I assume. Apparently, the entire eastern half of the country, or everything east of the Mississippi, must be, because I don't ever hear about people talking about hunting open country on the eastern part of the U.S. And I understand that a 100-yard shot is rare. I mean that's about the far end of what a lot of people ever will take a shot, especially in heavy timber, because unless you're hunting a clear cut or something like that, you're looking at lanes that are just a few yards wide. So that kind of hunting I can understand, where sitting in one spot and trying to bring a deer to you and call a deer in would definitely be a lot easier than trying to walk around in the woods. And I guarantee in wooded areas like that, there's very few people that can walk around without alerting the deer to their presence, and just so.
Yeah, the Maryland woods are pretty thick, and the from at least from what people tell me, the deer stand is pretty popular, at least around this way. Or if you're going to be on the ground, you're going to be set up at at a clearing of some sort,
Mhm.
because I mean, 100-yard shot, you're probably going to hit any number of 50, 60 trees before you get to your target. Not to mention any kind of branch that might be sticking down or bush that might be a sticker bush that's growing up out of the woods. It's definitely pretty thick, and then there's also lots of hills. So just because you think you're a certain distance away, because you're looking at it, there may be a real big valley in between you and the deer you're shooting at, and it's actually twice as far away.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, that's
okay.
for that area in Utah that I was talking about. The average shot distance out there is considered to be approximately 300 yards.
Yeah, there's really, if you're in the woods in Maryland, you're not going to waste your time taking a shot at 300 yards. Unless, of course, you're on the edge of the wood line and that 300 yards is in a clearing or in somebody's, like if you're out in somebody's farm and they're got a bunch of wide open fields, yeah, sure. But if you're actually in the woods, that's a waste of a shot to take 300.
Sure, that makes sense to me too. Now, over in the YouTube chat, Midnight Range TM is asking about calling deer. He did not realize that deer have cell phones. Even in Nebraska now, everybody has a cell phone.
Yes.
So yeah, even the deer have cell phones out here. You can usually call the deer by dialing 1-800-BIG-BUCK.
Sandhills, how many deer did you sell a cell phone to today? How many sales did you make to deer today?
I'm not actually allowed to discuss work information with the public. There are laws against that.
Okay, so there's no human deer ratio here.
There may be a ratio, but I can't actually divulge that information. I'm not at liberty to say.
In the past, did any deer get Obama phones?
Well, we had to do something with those old gray Motorola flip phones from the late 90s. So, yeah, they've been distributing those.
Yeah, that's actually what you see is the Zach Morris style brick phone. We repurpose those, and we actually send those out to the Sandhills of Nebraska for the animals. Yes.
Why couldn't deer have cell phones? They can read street signs. I mean, how do you think they know where to cross at?
No, I just want to get the app that lets me track their phones so I know where they're at. This is what I'm getting to.
No, I hear you, but the thing is, you have to get a bench warrant for to be able to tap the cell phone and ping it like that. And I can't do that.
There you go, dredging up the law again.
I can't do that legally from where I work. So yeah. Now, that is one thing that I have never done a whole lot of. The calling that I have done, I'm self-taught. I've never learned from a master deer caller, but there are lots of different tips and tricks as far as calling in a deer. And of course, we've got different options. You can use a grunt call. You can use the doe bleat, I guess is the word for it. Try and simulate the sound of a hot doe or a doe in estrus that's looking for a good looking fella. Or you can try and simulate a different buck, a male deer, and if there are any real males around, real bucks around, then they'll get mad that there's another guy trying to get in on their territory, and they'll show up to kick some butt. You can do the same thing with rattling, it's called. You can take some old antlers. You can find those, if you walk through the woods or whatever and look for sheds, because deer drop their antlers every year and grow new ones. And so you can pick the antlers up off the ground and find a couple different antlers, and you just kind of clash them together, and makes it sound like two deer fighting. And if there are any other bucks in the area, they'll come over to see if there's butt to whoop. Now that kind of brings me to my my next topic here, as far as theories that I've developed over the years of watching the deer. And you guys can I guess critique this theory once I get through it, but try and bear with me as I try to get through this. Because if you think about deer behavior, and this applies to the bucks, I'm not talking about the doe, because they're females, and I can't for the life of me get in their head. I can't figure them out. Any species, female. But if you think about the cycle of a buck from late summer, early fall through the rut, which is in this area, probably going on right now. It should be starting about this week. And then the post rut. Think of bucks as college age men, humans. And the early part of the year is well, let's think about this. The whole thing revolves around the rut. And we call it the rut. That is the couple of weeks out of the year that the deer are getting it on. Okay, is the easiest way I can explain this. The bucks are all worked up. They're looking for a honey. The doe are all worked up. They're finally willing to give the fellas what they want. And nature happens for a few weeks in the fall of the year. It's usually around November. And so what'll happen is, think of the rut. That's kind of like there's a party. And all these college guys, frat boys, whatever, they're getting ready for this party, right? So the late summer, early fall, bucks will actually travel in groups of 2 or 3. It's usually called a bachelor group. And they're still friends. They're still pals, right? They're hanging out. They show up to the party in groups of 2 or 3 or 4 guys, kind of like at a frat party. And they're there for one reason and one reason only, maybe 2 reasons. They want to find a chick, and they want to kick some butt, right? They want to party, they want to fight, they want to do, whatever college age males with more hormones than brains want to do. And so that's the early part of the year. And then when the rut gets close, or when the rut starts, they find a girl. So they've been at the party for about an hour. They've kind of looked everything over, and now they've all kind of locked in on this one girl, right? Or each one of them is locked in on a girl. And so the buck locks in on this girl, and he'll follow her all over. Doesn't matter where she goes. He's one step behind her, and bucks will literally do this. It's not a Kavanaugh analogy, midnight range, okay? This is just my theory on how to get in the head of a buck. So they'll lock onto this doe, and they'll follow her all around. And if there's only one buck that's locked onto this doe, or only one guy that's locked onto this girl, then there's no competition. Everything's okay. Now, occasionally, another guy will come along and be like, "Hey, that's my girl." And then a fight breaks out. And during the rut, that's what bucks do. They want to breed, and they want to fight. And they want to fight for rights to breed. And if you think about college guys at a frat party, it's kind of the same thing. So they'll fight each other. And these guys that showed up together will actually fist fight each other over a girl if they need to, if it comes to that. They know later on they're going to be friends, but at the time, all's fair in love and war, right? And that's the rut. They're only thinking about that one thing. They'll fight to get what they want, but ultimately their mind is on the one thing, and everything else, common sense, goes out the window. Caution goes out the window. And I think we all have seen young people who have traded common sense and good decision making for hormones and that, right? So then that couple weeks gets over, they hook up with the girl, whatever, it's done. They all go back and kind of regroup. They're hungover. These bucks they haven't eaten. They've barely had a drink of water for 2-3 weeks now. All they've done literally is chase girls and fight and breed. And that's literally all they've done. Bucks will lose a tremendous amount of weight over the rut. And then later on, the post-rut, they're recovering, they're recuperating. Once the post-rut is past, we're kind of past the first of the year now, then they're pals, and they'll rebuild their bachelor groups throughout the spring and the summer. and get back together and be pals again, get ready to go to the next party next year. So, wow, I am good at ignoring your calls. I can't talk and read at the same time, midnight. So that's kind of where, if you can think of a frat boy at a party, you can think of a buck throughout the course of the fall.
Sandhills,
Yep.
that was a very detailed explanation, but really all you had to do was say that the deer are going through Ponfar.
Okay, I could have just done that.
I like the college party analogy better because that's pretty much how it works. Yeah, that's basically it right there.
So wait a minute, are you saying that the people in the audience have never seen Star Trek?
I think that some of the people in the audience have seen Star Trek, but I still like the way I told it better.
I have to agree.
All right, well, live long and prosper.
All right, thanks, man.
For the layman out there that's just getting into deer for the first time, the college meathead analogy pretty much cuts it for you. So yeah, that works.
I mean, it really is true what Two Live Moo was saying out there in the chat, though. Moral of the story: hot chicks will get you killed. When you're a deer with really nice set of antlers on your head, yeah. But that's the thing is, a buck that's locked onto a doe, he's not paying attention to his surroundings.
Oh, this is true.
He's paying attention to her and her alone, and that's all there is to it. So that's why everybody wants to hunt during the rut, and not every state has their rifle season coincide with the peak of the rut, but typically Nebraska's does. And so it makes it really nice because the 11 days that we get to hunt with our centerfire rifles, that's right in the peak of the rut in Nebraska typically. And it's when the deer are, it's not just that they're at their dumbest, because that makes it sound like it's not sporting. What it means is they're at their most predictable and
vulnerable. There you go.
And what it is, if you get a spot where you can consistently hunt the same area year after year after year, you will learn the patterns of the deer. You'll learn the trails that they take. You'll learn a lot of different things. But the first thing is you need to think about what's going on in their head. The females are thinking about food and water, and maybe a little bit about a little hanky panky. But even at that, it takes a long time, and she makes him work for it. And they play hard to get. They really do. And you can say it's Darwin, you can say it's survival of the fittest, whatever. But he's got to prove himself worthy to be able to breed and pass his DNA along to the next generation. So that's kind of the way that works. If you can find the doe, then you'll find the bucks during the rut. And if you can find a buck who is locked onto a doe, he's not paying attention. If the one that I've got on my wall out in the living room, he was kind of following a trail. He wasn't with a doe, but I think she had gone through earlier in the day, and he was following her trail. He had his nose to the ground. He didn't know I was around either until it was too late. But that's the price they pay for, like I said, for trying to get that girl at the party. So.
That's my buddy and I did that. We it was almost sunset, and we were just getting ready to turn around, and we were kind of walking back, and we saw this doe go running across, and I looked at it, and I said, I'm going to go and take the shot. And he goes, all right. So I did it, and then about 5 seconds later, the buck came flying around the corner. He was chasing after it, and my buddy shot the buck, but he dropped the buck into a ravine. So we spent the rest of the night getting it out and then hauling it back to the vehicle. We were at the furthest point from our vehicle that we could be. We didn't really prepare to drag it back the right way. I mean, it was awful. It was. You need to plan ahead on how you're going to get no 2-wheel cart, no ATV. We had to go across a couple cricks to get the deer over, and oh my God, we had 2 of them.
Oh, that is something you've got to plan.
Yeah,
what are you going to do to drag your deer? Because there's the old fashioned just grab an antler and take off walking and dragging. And if there's 2 of you, that helps. But there are a ton of products out there now.
Yeah.
Whether they're carts or the little roll-up sheet of plastic that slides better, and you can lay the deer on that and kind of tie it down. And it's kind of like one of those roll-up sheet sleds. and they make harnesses that you can basically, slip on backpack straps, and there's a D-ring in the back and a rope that you tie to the antlers, and you just kind of, lean forward and put your whole body into it, and you don't have to wrench your shoulder. But sometimes it just flat out sucks retrieving a deer. And if you hunt, near a river or a creek or anything like that, then eventually you're going to have to drag a deer out of the water, and that sucks too.
Yep.
But that's just part of the fun, right? If it was easy, it'd be just going to the store and buying it, and no adventure. And that's, I think, a lot of people who have never hunted don't understand the concept of, we're not out there to be brutal. We're not out there to we're not out there for the death side of it at all. I expect probably there are some idiots that just flat out like to kill stuff, but that's not a hunter, that's a killer. There's a huge difference. And so the people that actually are what I consider a hunter, it's harvesting the animal off the land. It is herd control and population control. But it's just it's a way to be part of nature. And if you like spending time with the outdoors at all, camping, things like that, if you've never just gone out and found a beautiful animal in nature, and if you're Christian like me, you believe that God has supplied this animal to give up its life to become food. If you don't appreciate that, and sometimes it's emotional for me. Not that I'm sad that well, I shouldn't even say that. Sometimes I'm sad a little bit because an animal did have to give up its life, but I went out there with that intent in mind too. A lot of it's just gratitude towards God, towards nature, towards the animal, for everything coming together. And a lot of it is the fact that, once that deer's on the ground, I start to get hungry thinking about, cooking up some backstraps. So, but it's not all about just going out and killing something and just going out to, to be brutal for brutality's sake. Nature's brutal. Killing, anything is brutal to an extent, but it's not there for the brutality's sake. That's not why we go. So yeah. A few other people have joined the chat out there. Looks like Stephen Kaiser's in the house, and we've got who else have I seen out there? Blue Steel is around. So, and of course, Midnight's trying to troll on me. If you've got time and you want to jump in the chat, I think I sent you a link, Midnight. So jump in there. Yeah, like Stephen Kaiser said, he's not bloodthirsty. He's hungry. He needs food in the freezer, and that's kind of what it's all about. Anybody that's out there watching or listening, and if you haven't made a comment, let us know you're out there. What questions does anybody have? Whether it's anybody in the panel, anybody out in the chat, as far as deer hunting, things you've always wanted to know, tips and tricks, things you want to pass along. One trick that I learned a long time ago, and I've never been able to do this, but if you've got a spot where you need to walk in through, some wooded areas, things like that, to get to where you're going to hunt, of course, we're going to get out there super early, right, in the dark, and stumble around in the woods trying to get to our spot with a flashlight or something. We don't want to make so much noise that we run all the animals out within a 5-mile radius, just trying to get in there and get set up. That's why we go early, to get everything settled back down before sunup. One of the tricks that I've learned is if you are able to use the turkey call, the diaphragm call that goes in the roof of your mouth, and you can put one of those in your mouth as you're walking in, go slow. And there's no way to go completely quietly, especially through the woods. In the fall, the leaves are on the ground. You're going to make noise. So go kind of slow, and every now and then just make a few cuts on that diaphragm call and make it sound like you're a hen turkey clucking. And it really keeps the rest of the animals subdued, thinking that the noise that they're hearing is just some turkeys walking through. And I learned that from an old an old ridge runner who grew up in the river bottom, putting meat on the table for the family because that they didn't have the money to go to the store, and that's what he used to do. And so now I have never been able to make a diaphragm call work, so I don't actually get to practice that myself. But I've always, anybody who's ever had a deer hunting conversation, I've always tried to pass that along. It makes great sense. If you can't use a diaphragm call and you've got your hands free and you want to try any other, turkey call, slate call, anything that just kind of makes those cut sounds like a cluck. And just kind of pay attention to what sounds turkeys make as they're just kind of walking along, getting down from their roost, and they're gonna, go out and look for a day's worth of food, and then make a little bit of noise. Don't worry about being quiet. Let the rest of the animals think that you're supposed to be there. What other tips, tricks, questions? What has everybody got?
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, it's probably a pretty simple question to answer. Are you allowed to bait deer? Like I would imagine, like if you're going out before deer season and you're trying to find out where they are, putting food out to draw them in. But I'm talking about like sitting an apple on a stick, and then when the deer comes, you shoot it then.
I can't speak for every state. I can only speak for Nebraska. But in the state of Nebraska, bait stations are legal. Didn't mean to mute that. I think 2 weeks before deer season starts or rifle season starts, the bait stations have to be gone.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And if you have something that you can't take down because it's not an artificial bait station, like a farmer's corn pile or something like that, then you cannot shoot a deer within 200 yards of that. So Stephen Kaiser saying 10 days. So 10 days to 2 weeks. Anyway, yeah, you can't go out and make a corn pile out on the ground legally the night before deer season starts or anything like that. And if there is a corn pile or something like that, then you can't shoot the deer off of it, and the deer and yourself can't be within 200 yards. So if there is something like that and they're coming off of the river bottom and they're coming up to it, and you've got a spot that you can set up between the river and you're outside that 200-yard radius, then it's legal. But aside from that, no. Now, I can't speak for other states. Other states might allow it. But no.
It doesn't seem very sporty. Like I would be.
No, I don't think it is. The thing is, as many deer as we have, even around Nebraska, I don't think that it's necessary. If you can't find deer without having to shoot them off a corn pile, then maybe you should be a little better at your craft than that, or make some friends and find some better places to hunt. So no, I'm okay with not being able to hunt over a corn pile or something like that. Now, that being said, there's a difference between baiting and using attractants, because baiting is actually using a food source. So like actual corn or grain or something like that. Bag of apples would be baiting because deer can come and eat it. Now, if you're using something that smells like corn or smells like molasses or something like that, then it's an attractant. That is legal. Also, if you're using something that smells like hot dough, because deer use their nose more than anything else when they're looking for, anything really. Their nose is their single most important organ, or the sense of smell is what they rely on the most. So attracting the deer with different smells, that's okay. You can get something that smells like corn as long as it's not actual corn. And it's just a spray or a gel or something, that is okay.
And you're talking about scent. That's a big one. I know I left my my hunting outfit, what I was going to wear primarily, out on the patio for a couple days before I went out, just to let it air out a little bit. Also, didn't have anything very aromatic for breakfast the morning of. I used scent-free soaps and everything when I got cleaned up that morning. You know, you really got to think about smell because they might detect some sort of a. You have a nice, you know, say you have a nice big old pile of bacon before you head out. That wind hits you and pushes your scent downrange. You know, seriously, I mean, you got to. They're going to recognize that that's not a typical smell. Okay, we're going to be a little more alert now because that's not. So to me, scent is a big one. You know, you can buy a lot of these scent blocker coats and stuff, but just, you know, if you wear that coat around, like in Nebraska, a lot of guys wear camouflage, you know, 6 months out of the year. You might use aftershave or cologne or whatever, you know, and you're going to get that in there. So make sure that you wash up your clothes. You can get special, you know, hunting detergents and soaps and stuff like that. I mean,
And
yeah.
not only that, but just getting out of the vehicle with the motor
Yep.
running, you walk past the exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
Now you've got, you know, gasoline exhaust or diesel exhaust blasting all over your clothes. That you're going to take that smell with you. I know a lot of people at deer camp. You know, once the sun's down and the guns are put away, then you know, some libations come out and they're drinking some beer or something like that at night. You know, if you have too much of that, you know, everybody knows what that smells like the next day coming out of your pores, sweating that out. Or, you know, chili is pretty much a staple at most deer camps too. But if you have too much chili, the next day you're going to let everything know that's downwind of you that, you know, where you are. So
that's
I
natural
guess,
gas.
I guess having a cigarette in the deer stand would be out of the question.
that in my deer stand, it would be. You'd be surprised at how many people smoke while they're in their stand or wherever they're sitting and then come back in. I say this because my family, up until this year, for about 15 years, my family had a hunting guide service. And people would come in from, you know, the East Coast. A lot of folks from Maryland would come in, Pennsylvania, Carolinas, Virginia, California. We've had people come from all over. But you'd be surprised how many of those people, you know, we'd pull up about 11:30 in the morning to pick them up and take them in to eat lunch, and they'd be sitting out there, you know, with a cigarette lit, sitting in their stand, and they'd, you know, put the cigarette out and get in the pickup, and the first thing that they'd say, you know, somebody'd say, "Hey, did you see anything?" No, I didn't see anything all morning. I don't think there's any deer up here. Well, dummy, put your butt out. So absolutely, if you smoke cigarettes and you're trying not to get busted for scent, then it's not a good combo. Absolutely. So you do what you want, but anybody who's sitting in the pop-up blind with me, my my vehicles and my pop-up blind, there's smoke-free zones anyway. So
Well, it would definitely seem very counterproductive because I know a tree burning doesn't smell like a cigarette, but smoke still smells like smoke. So any woodland creature is going to say, "Hey, that's bad. I don't like the smell of that. I want to get out of here." And then once you put a cigarette out, that's where the real stink comes from, is that extinguished cigarette butt.
Yep.
And you got to think any deer is going to smell that and say, "Wait a second, something's not right here."
You know, if anything, if you've got to have the nicotine, maybe get Nicorette for the weekend if you can get it from your doctor.
Yeah, get on the patch for a weekend.
Slap a patch on and just deal with it for 4 hours while you're out that morning, you know?
Yep. And of course, we got Two Live Boo out there saying his brother shot a monster whitetail while smoking a cigarette. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, you know, it's not going to help your chances any.
Well, you know, the wind might have been in his favor. It might have been 250 yards away. I mean, you can smell somebody smoking a cigarette from a block away if the wind's blowing downwind.
Yep.
You can, because I'll have neighbors that'll go out in their front steps and I can smell it out front of my house. I mean, literally the cigarette smoke. But 200 yards, 250 yards, yeah, no, you might have an advantage there, you know?
In some places, you can have all the normal smells that we're accustomed to and the deer don't notice because people live out there. I've talked to people who, in rifle season, they walk out on their back deck, blast a deer at the edge of their property, and they're all done for the year. And they never even had to leave home. Yeah. It just depends on where you live. Where can you discharge a firearm? Do you have enough property? Are the deer there? Blah 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 blah. I mean, if if you're hunting deer on a farm and they're used to the smell of that farm tractor, then that might not, like you were talking about having your engine idling, they may not think anything of that. But then there's other things that they might pick up on. Now, I'm not saying this from experience. I'm saying this from what people have told me. I've heard a lot of different takes on hunting deer in Michigan from people over the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One other thing that is kind of I don't want to say a hot topic, but it has been discussed over the years is hunting from a vehicle. And of course, state laws vary there too. But in the state of Nebraska, you you absolutely cannot hunt from a public right of way. So if you're on a county road or a state highway or even a section line that's got 2 tire tracks going down it, that's a public right of way, and you can't hunt from there. You could park your car off the side of the road if you've got permission from the landowner to be on the other side of the fence and go onto the private property on the other side of a fence. That's okay. You just can't, pull off the road, shoot a deer, and then go out there and get it. That's illegal. But
isn't this supposed to be 200 yards away from a highway when you take your shot, or from an interstate?
I think,
or is it 100? I thought there was a yard minimum. It might be 100, but
I don't know where I hunt. Typically not.
Yeah.
But now in the state of Nebraska, you can hunt from a vehicle if it's not moving. You can't hunt from a moving vehicle. You also can't use 2-way radios to transmit location of deer to or from a moving vehicle. So you can't, guide somebody in a pickup or something like that. But if the vehicle is stopped, it works. You can hunt from it. You can shoot right out your window if the vehicle is not moving. So some people think that's okay. Other people don't think that's okay. And I'm not talking about if you have, physical disabilities, you're in a wheelchair and you can't jump out or something like that, because that's always been legal for the most part. But I want to let everybody kind of sound off on just the idea of using your vehicle as a blind, kind of like I do. I didn't get in here with a glass of water and my throat's going to try and quit me. So I'm going to go grab a glass of water, let you guys talk, and I'll be right back.
Yeah. I don't like any of the hunting regulations that don't have to do with public safety. Some of these hunting regulations that I've read about or heard about, had people tell me about, tried to figure out on, they make it where, honestly, even though the past few years I've tried to hunt, it almost makes it where I don't want to. It's such a pain. I don't see what some of these regulations do as far as public safety. I'm thinking that over time there's going to be less and less people hunting. 1, because the cost keeps going up. 2, because kids today they're weird and different and they can't shoot Bambi, whatever. And 3, the rules are so strict, nobody's going to want to go through with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, especially if you have to pay for a land lease, because again, a lot of I don't know if your public hunting areas are going to be consumed up, with like city expansion and stuff. But, I talked to Matt down in Texas, NEA Matt, and he says that it's very expensive to get to buy a land lease to go hunt on. It's very pricey and there's no guarantee. I wouldn't know about that. But again, if I'd ever have to pay to use land, I can see where people are coming from. And then you've got the expense of getting yourself or the family out there. You've got the ammo, you've got the firearm, you got the permit, you got to buy the stamp, whatever, So yeah, the regulations definitely don't make it any easier too,
I can tell you I don't care how many deer I get, how big they are, how much meat the butcher gives me off of them. I'm losing money by going deer hunting. I could go to the grocery store and buy beef, the same amount with all the cuts and whatever it is, or sausage for less money. So it's not, I don't understand the whole, I'm doing it to fill my fridge and stuff. Okay, yeah, but there's got to be more to it than that, because it's not cheaper to go hunting than it is to go to the grocery store. That aside, when you restrict what days, what times, where you can do it, how you can do it, and some of these things don't make any sense. Like what we were talking about earlier. Okay, Why can't you set up a bait pile, set in your blind, and when it comes to the bait pile, blast him? What's the difference? I just don't get it. So,
Well,
And in some states do. I know down in Texas, whenever I watch these hunting shows and they're on their ranches, the guy gets up in a stand, they herd the deer in who come eat off a cotton seed pile, and the guy shoots the deer and they take it back, and that's it. That's their farms or their ranches that they hunt on. Not all of them, but I've seen that a lot of times in hunting shows based out of Texas. So some places allow it, but yeah.
Fence ranches down there where the animals are private property. They're not game and parks animals. They're owned like livestock, and you can do whatever you want with your livestock. So a lot of what you see on TV isn't really indicative of what we're talking about with fair chase hunting either. So everything that I do is fair chase. The deer can come and go from the property as they please. And the state of Nebraska, I guess, owns the deer. So that's why I have to get a permit from them to harvest the deer, because even though it's on, my dad's property, he doesn't own the wild game that is on the property. So I guess part of I heard what you said as I was walking out of the room, Squib, as far as laws that don't involve public safety. Part of the reason why there's a law against some of that stuff, especially the baiting, I think a lot of it is just to make it to where there is still some sport involved or some challenge to it, I guess. Otherwise, I know people that can do the same thing as what you described. They can step out on their back porch, they can shoot a deer. 5 minutes after sunup, the hunt's already over. They've got a deer, and that's not why I like to go deer hunting. I honestly,
well, that's the way I'd love to do it if I could.
if I judge the success of a hunt by whether or not I kill a deer, then that would be one thing. But I do not judge success of a hunt by how many deer get harvested by the hunters. A successful hunt doesn't necessarily mean you bag a deer. A successful hunt means that you had a good time. You got to reconnect with nature. Those of us that, and I think probably that's everybody, but people in high stress jobs can unplug for a while and get out of the hustle and bustle and the daily grind and just go, sit and be quiet for a while and just take in the sights and the sounds of, squirrels rustling around in the trees, making noise, making you think, there's a 400-pound deer coming out when it's just a squirrel that pops out. If you haven't ever had that happen, then you haven't deer hunted enough, because that's a fun feeling when your heart starts to race because you hear this big old monster walking through the leaves, and then it's a squirrel. But yes, it really does happen.
Hey, I was gonna say, not to mention, man, if you're out in a nice isolated area, the stars, the sky. I mean, a lot of people actually come out to Nebraska because we have views of the stars you don't get because we don't have the light pollution.
What's cool is there's a spot where I used to spend almost every opening morning, and it was only about a quarter mile from my dad's house. I didn't even fire up a vehicle. I just walk down the lane and go find a haystack or a pile of bales to sit on. And once the sun came up, I could hear roosters crowing from two different directions. And then there was another neighbor about a mile and a half down the road that raises Pomeranians and other small toy dogs like that. And you could hear the dogs start barking in the morning when they woke up and they're hungry. And just knowing the area like I did, I mean, I knew that these sounds that I was hearing were coming from a half a mile to, a mile and a half away. But on a still morning, there's no noise, there's no traffic. That's pretty cool. Just to hear the world wake up. That's pretty cool too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we've
got any questions rolling in at all?
Well, I'm just kind of looking at this a little bit here. People are talking about public land versus private land, and yeah, that's public land obviously gets a lot more hunting pressure. The deer are going to be a lot more skittish there. Deer by nature are curious, and they are kind of dumb. Their eyesight doesn't work very well. They pick up movement much better than they can pick you out sitting still. A lot of people complain about having to wear orange, but the deer can't see it. The deer don't see color anyway, so don't worry about that. And a lot of the time, the orange that I wear is like a blaze real tree or something like that. So there's still the break, the outline.
Got it on right now.
But it still breaks up the outline. Plus, you're legal, so people that you're hunting with, or people that don't know where you are can spot you, because center fire rifle bullets will travel a long way. So orange is definitely a must, especially it's required to have head, chest, and back in Nebraska. Other states, just check where you're hunting. But deer, they can be dumb. At the same time, some of those old bucks that live to be 5, 6, 7 years old, they didn't get that old by being stupid either. So they can be pretty wary. And again, that's part of the fun, is to decide, am I going to look for something that's old and got a lot of years on him, that maybe isn't the best deer to eat, but he's going to have maybe a lot of character in his antlers, and maybe be something worth putting on the wall. And I don't know very many hunters who would turn that down. But at the same time, if you're looking for primarily you're hunting, and you definitely want to bring something home for the freezer for your trouble, then consider maybe a nice big doe, because the meat's going to be a lot more tender there, or a younger buck, 2 years old, something like that, maybe 3. But what else do we have going on? Danny is talking about the thrill of the hunt, and that's kind of the whole reason I like to go. I always get sad once I bag an animal, because then I'm done hunting. And it's not just because that's when the work starts, because you've got to field dress your deer, and then you've got to get it back somewhere, hang it up, get the skin off of it, get the meat cut off, whatever. All the work starts after you pull the trigger, but all the fun happens before. Just the what we just said, getting out there and sitting in nature. What else? What do we say? We're looking at the stars, listening to the world wake up. Just watching the squirrels play. Once the sun comes up, that's kind of distracting, but it's fun to watch them chase each other through the branches as you're sitting there with nothing else going on. Watching a nuthatch walk up and down the side of a tree like it's flat. That's kind of cool too. Yeah, Blue Steel is right. Hunting is hunting, not shooting an animal. That's just killing. Killing is involved in hunting, obviously, but
Well, I don't know. I mean, the way you're describing it, it just sounds less and less appealing to me. All I care is I get some food, and I keep somebody from getting in a traffic accident.
Let me ask you.
I mean, you're talking about, it's just you get out in nature. I can go hiking. Yeah. Oh, but you got this fun of visit. No, I'm sitting in a box, freezing, getting wet, waiting for hopefully a deer to come by. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's not. I don't look at this as fun. If I am lucky enough not to have life interrupt me again for like the 4th year in a row, and next Wednesday, I guess it would be, or Thursday, I'll be sitting in a box, freezing my butt off, getting wet, waiting for a deer quietly, trying not to make any scent. Hopefully I get one to cross my path. It's within range. Hopefully I hit it. Hopefully I don't have to track the thing. And then you got to go through all the, like I said, I've helped gut 2 deer. They stink. Okay. It's a mess. They're heavy. And then the list just goes on and on from there. So I don't see how any of it's a thrill or fun or anything. It's a chore is what it is. Yeah, but I mean, if that's what you call fun, man.
Dude, why don't you
I'm not trying to turn somebody off from hunting. I'm just saying that I don't look at it as sport at all. More than likely, I won't even see a deer, and I'll be like, well, I just wasted all my time and money.
But let me ask you this, Squib. Do you fish?
No, it's boring as hell.
Okay, so for the people who've never hunted, but if they fish, there's a difference between fishing and catching too. And you it's kind of the same thing. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into a good fishing trip, but it can be fun just sitting out on the water, even if they're not biting. You know, if you've got got a good buddy with you or something like that, and you're just kind of hanging out, then
a lot of the people that I know that fish and hunt do it for the same reason other people golf.
Yep.
It's to hang out with other dudes, get away from your wife, and get drunk. Honestly.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. So
okay, well, I can do that anytime I want. I don't have to go out in the middle of the woods to do that or go to a cabin up north.
So come do it with us, where we'll make it more fun for you. Okay.
I guess. I mean,
we'll
I'm not saying that
done in 2 hours.
The people that I'm hunting with have been doing this for a while, and there's some of the people that have been pressuring me to do this, and blah 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 blah. But so far, everything that I've learned over the years from talking to people, talking to hunters, people that love doing this, and just I don't see the sport in it. I just don't.
See, you say that till you pull a trigger on a monster buck, and you're like, "Oh my god, it was the best time ever!" You know, I can already hear it right
killing
now.
An animal doesn't do anything for me one way or the other. I don't have any feelings about it.
But here's
I just don't.
Not everybody feels the same way about that. Not everybody.
I mean, pulling the trigger on a person is a whole nother thing too. I mean, I've sat in a hole for 2 days straight waiting for somebody to come across my sights. I guess a deer would be a lot different because deer can't shoot back or sneak up on you, or flank you or something.
Well,
but
they can if you're not. Just watch out with that scent, you know.
If it's Bambo, like an angry buck with an AK-47, then yeah, I guess I'm in trouble. But I mean, the way you're talking about, I'm glad that you have fun with it. I'm glad so many people enjoy it. Believe me, I want you guys to take out as many deer as possible. I'm telling you, they're out in the road all the time, and people are hitting them. I mean, these things are dangerous. They're a nuisance, in my opinion.
They are,
but there's I don't know how it is everywhere, but I mean, there's tons of them around here. I got them in. I mean, when I just pulled into my driveway from work, I see them almost every night. I almost backed over one once. I mean, they're all over the place, and I live in a township. But it's just, the whole, having to go get the permit, and then they send you back because you can't go and get it all on the same day, and you've got to buy the extra permit. You got to have the right clothes and the right caliber, and then you got to find a place. I mean, and just you got to take time off work, and I don't see any of that as a sport. It is totally a chore. It's a chore that I need to finally get out and do. And if I don't get anything, other than catching grief from everybody that's pushing me to do this, I was like, oh well, at least I got out there and did it. But it's just I just don't see the sport in it. No sport at all.
Well, and when it comes to going out early, getting up before the butt crack of dawn, freezing your butt off, waiting for the sun to come up, my wife is with you there. She likes to go with me when I hunt. If I wait and pick her up about 10 in the morning, and she's had a chance to sleep in, and I've already got the vehicle warmed up. But she went out the first time I ever took her hunting. She went out with me first thing in the morning, and she thought it was really cool that we got out there in the dark, and we both kind of got nestled in between two hay bales, and we actually both of us fell asleep. And when we woke up, the sun wasn't up yet, but it was daylight, and there was about a 1/4 inch of snow all around us, on the ground, on the bales, on us, because it started snowing after we got there. And then all around us were deer. Apparently I wasn't snoring for the first time ever. And the deer were only about 15, 20 yards away, and there was about half a dozen of them, a couple doe and some fawns, just grazing on alfalfa, just real close to where we were. And she thought that was kind of the coolest thing she'd ever seen. But at the same time, not cool enough that she ever wants to get up early and go freeze her butt off again to see it. But I think, and if you don't, that's cool. Like I said, hunting isn't.
Well, I ain't trying to sound like a girl here, because I've been up early in the morning. I've been, I've been on patrol. I've been on patrol in the middle of the night in the mountains, freezing my butt off, carrying a machine gun and everything. It's kind of like combat, like I said, without somebody shooting back at you, I guess. Oh. But you know what? What does sound appealing is all the stories that I do hear. Like
Right.
what you got, having to drag one out of a ravine. I'm sure that was no fun at all, but you got a great story later.
Looking back at, well, yeah, that's you get that fun
Yeah.
part of it, and you get the
Yeah.
possibility of getting a good
But
harvest, and the jerky and the sausage alone makes it worth it,
not everybody is into hunting. Not everybody thinks that there's any fun in, taking their gun and putting holes in a piece of paper, and other people think it's awesome. That's the best part about the 2A community is there's so many different things that we can all get together and say, I don't care so much about I duck hunting, goose hunting. For me, probably never going to do it in my life, but I will stand right beside the duck hunters and the goose hunters and defend the Second Amendment and the right, to own that shotgun. And they'll stand beside me, hopefully, for the right to own my deer rifle, and we'll all stand next to you and defend your right to own your Walker Colts or your AR or whatever, your Beretta M9 that you own. And the cool part is, like Travis said, you've got that cool story. I don't have stories because I was never in the service. And when I hear people talk about, stories from when they were serving, I don't know if I so much get jealous, but I definitely feel like I'm not part of the club. But then when we talk about hunting and we swap hunting stories, I belong in that circle, and I've got stories and I've got things to share. But that's just part of being, everybody is in this community together, and we don't all like the same things. But we all agree on the fact that we all like to shoot our guns at one thing or another. And somebody had said earlier, I think it was Two Live Moo had said, if you're coerced into hunting and you're not doing it because you want to, then you're probably not going to like it. It's just like anything else. If you put somebody into shooting,
I've been pressured into it. So, but I've had life get in the way.
But that's the thing. If you're pressured into, if you're only going to get the people to shut up that are pressuring you to do it,
pretty much,
then I wouldn't expect you to have a lot of fun, Squib. I really wouldn't. Now here's the thing: you might catch the bug. We don't. I mean,
I doubt it. I've had people talk to me about, the thrill of, and I'm like, it's just, I mean, I wouldn't think of it any different than if I ran it over with my truck. It's a dumb animal that tastes good. All right, let's throw it.
Well,
kill it and eat it.
part of the you talk about sitting around freezing, getting rained on. And to me, it'd be more of a thrill to do the spot and stalking. That's what I did on my last hunt.
And you can't do that in Michigan. You can't do that.
I know, but I'm saying that was actually fun, being with a buddy, going across the prairie, going over the hills, and following up with them, and finally getting that shot off and having fun. That part was exciting. It was an adventure. But I can see what you're saying. Just getting, it's a different situation. It depends on what you're doing. You know,
it'd also be nice too if they didn't have seasons. Like one July Saturday morning, I get up and go, I think I'm going to go deer hunting today, and I just go out and pop a deer and come home. It's good to go. That'd be but that's fantasy world. That's not going to happen. But it's here's the thing though. I don't want anybody to think that I'm against hunting. I don't think there's enough hunting. Believe with all the animals running around all over the place, there's not enough. We're just building too many subdivisions and too many strip malls. We got to thin the herd more. So sure. I wish the DNR would get with it and go, maybe we should do something about this. But and
I know I'm asking this question, Squib, but for anybody who is questioning why we don't have a July deer season, we have to wait till the fall when the does have weaned off their fawns. Same reason you can't.
Okay, see, and that's something I didn't know. So
spring turkey hunt is toms only. You can hunt hens in the fall once the chicks are grown, but you can't shoot a turkey hen in Nebraska in the spring because they've all got a nest that they need to sit on the eggs, and that's how we protect the hatch. And you don't want to shoot Bambi's mom until he's old enough to make it on his own and doesn't still need a nurse. And so that's why we wait till the fall of the year to do our deer hunting, because by then the fawns are old enough to be weaned. So that's why, if anybody did wonder about that, July hunt would be maybe kind of cool in some ways, but I'd rather bundle up than sweat my butt off and have to fight mosquitoes.
God,
So
ticks.
early archery season, you guys that hunt
You guys don't have trees to have ticks.
No, we do. Oh God, dude, you got grassland. You get them just going through meadows.
Yeah, it's not the trees.
Yeah, yeah. No, we've got dense trees along the river.
See, here the ticks
Not
drop off the
forest.
trees onto you. They're not in the tall
no,
grass.
you get them. You get them when you go through like the prairie grass and stuff like that. If there's anything that's knee high,
It's
you got to
chiggers,
check your
stuff out here that you don't have to worry about in November because they've all frozen off. So.
Yeah.
Out in the chat, Stephen Kaiser is saying buck fever exists. You bet your butt it does. I think we've all, those of us that have shot a buck, if you haven't had buck fever at some point, then you haven't shot enough bucks, that's for sure, or had enough deer in your crosshairs. I get buck fever sometimes just seeing a big doe. There's just that little adrenaline rush that I always have to tell myself to calm down, take a deep breath, remember what I know about marksmanship, and put it where I want to put it instead of getting crazy, and slapping my trigger and completely making a fool of myself. So yeah, buck fever is very much a thing. Travis, you ever had buck fever?
No, but I know what you're talking about with that rush. It's the first time I took my first shot. I did miss. I shot low and to the right for the first time in my life, but I was shooting on a moving doe. But no, and then afterwards, you're just like, you come off that initial adrenaline rush. But after that, no, because I'd always consistently done a lot of shooting, target shooting and so on. So for me, there's that excitement of hitting the bullseye and wanting to hit it. So I think it kind of translates over to a hunt where you want to hit that buck or doe in the right spot. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of mindset, I guess, when you practice enough.
Have you ever practiced on the targets that have the picture of the deer front quarters and then they overlay the vital organs so you can
I haven't, but I will definitely do that before January. No, but I know, I typically tend to shoot for the shoulder area, or just behind the shoulder area, so I'm within the vital area.
Yeah. Now for anybody who's not deer hunted and squib, if you're going to go through with this, I probably don't need to tell you this, but I'm going to just kind of put this out to the whole world, I guess, and I'm not picking on squib here. But anybody who's never deer hunted, or anybody who has just a couple times and has, maybe not put the best shot on the deer, the spot to aim is find the back point of the shoulder bone, and then go about 2 inches behind that. And then just put your crosshair right there and pull your trigger. I've had a lot of people say, well, I've always heard, shoot them behind the shoulder. So I did. Well, they put the crosshair dead center of the deer. And that puts you behind the diaphragm. That puts you in the gut part.
Oh.
And I know a lot of people put arrows through there, but that's not where a bullet goes.
No, you're gonna have to take the carcass to the car wash and spray it out when you gut it.
If you line up your shot right, and not everybody gets a perfect broadside shot, I know, but the perfect shot is broadside with the near side leg forward, and that way that shoulder is pointed just perfect, and it opens up that rib cage area for you to make a clean, ethical one-shot kill. But there's a spot where you can actually hit the heart and the lungs all in one shot, all in one pass through, where they line up perfect. And that's ultimately what we should be looking for. Looks like we've got Sarge in the house. Sarge is here. I saw Obnoxious One had joined us too. Looks like maybe we're getting a few more people jumping over here. We got a little talk about some muzzle loaders out in the house. Travis, you done any smoke pole shooting or no?
No.
And Midnight is wanting to. Let's see what comment.
Hey, so John, I do have a quick question for you though.
Yeah, what's up?
The rifle, okay, once it's zeroed, I told you I'm thinking about buying a new rifle for deer season before January. Yeah. Take it out, shoot it. Should I?
You want me to keep quiet what you told me about? You can surprise people later with it.
Let's see.
We'll surprise people. We won't say
Yeah, I'll wait till I actually get it, and maybe we'll do a live unboxing or something. So
what happens, then your
Yeah.
patrons will see it first. So
there we go. There we go. Should I not clean that rifle until after season since it's been sighted 0? I put some rounds through it just because of accuracy. What do you? Because I know a lot of guys that do shooting competitions. They won't clean their M1s until M1As until the end of season. But does it really matter? Do you clean your rifle after you take it out and zero it or not?
what is this cleaning of a rifle?
Well, I'm talking about cleaning out the bore. Taking a bore brush down it and so on, and wiping off the bolt.
To be
Are you
honest,
being serious? I thought, yeah.
well, to be honest, and I'm not trying to throw my old man under the bus, but I never was taught how to clean a gun. I was taught how to shoot them,
Yeah.
but cleaning a gun was never something that we ever did. We didn't do enough shooting
Okay.
in my house growing up, and I don't know that I've ever run a patch down my old pump 22. And
Oh my.
since my dad's gun when he was a kid, and I got it when I was a kid, and I've probably shot a few thousand rounds through that thing by now. Still shoots,
Yeah.
but it might be nice to take that thing apart sometime and just get all the gunk out of it. And that's probably a project I'll do here over the winter. I haven't shot that thing in years, but I think the biggest thing is, if there's any grease or heavy oil on it,
Oh yeah.
from packing, clean that up, like you normally would, and then get it sighted in. Unless you're shooting something super corrosive, I wouldn't worry about it until you put it away for the season.
Yeah, my Ruger Ranch, I took it out and did the 2-shot 0 on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, which works amazingly, by the way. And then after that, I only did about another 3 or 4 rounds just to confirm a nice tight group at 200 yards. Then after that, I said, okay, I'm done. I think I did a total of 5 or 6 shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're good to go, then we're not talking about letting this thing sit for 20 years with corrosive powder.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that I wouldn't do. But the thing is, most people, once they clean their gun up, a lot of them, before they'll do a lot of precision shooting or something, they'll take a fouling shot anyway. Because we all know that a clean bore and a slightly dirty bore sometimes perform differently.
Yeah.
So, that fouling shot's not necessarily a bad idea. And here's the thing: we're not talking about precision shooting where you've got to put everything inside.
No.
We're talking about a 6 to 7 inch circle. So the thing is, we don't need perfect accuracy. I always joke that I don't worry about minute of angle as long as I can shoot minute of deer.
Yes.
So pretty much what it comes out to is if you can hit a pie plate at 100 yards or 200 yards or 300, whatever. If you can put all your shots inside a pie plate, you're gonna put all your shots inside the kill zone on an average sized deer, at least in Nebraska, average size. So yeah, we're not. I don't think I'd worry about cleaning it up too much.
It'll get that initial cleaning before I take it out, and I'll just shoot it to 0 it, and then after that, we're good to go.
Just let it be. And if it really bugs you to have fouling over the winter, then when you get it home, clean it up and do whatever. But I wouldn't worry about it. It's not like we're gonna go that long before you get it cleaned up. So I'm probably gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna get all the extra goop taken off the bolt and everything with mine before I sight it in, and then I'll probably leave it dirty too until after January. So
okay.
Yeah, if your gun can't handle sitting for a month or so with the filthy bore, then you probably shouldn't own that gun.
It's not the gun; it's me. I'm habitually OCD about.
That's totally different.
I'm ridiculous about it, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Midnight's right. The accuracy difference between a clean bore and a fouled bore probably isn't going to make a lot of difference for a deer. Again, we're talking about bullseye shooting or super long range precision shooting and something like that. We've got a few more people have joined in. Rob D is here. We've got Gizzard Gary is in the house. We've got Caleb Popejoy, Zorro, the Fox 117 is here. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. Am I talking about Velcro patches? If you've got a stout enough cleaning rod, then they will go down the barrel. You just got to pound with a hammer, Sarge. That's what you got to do. So yeah, if you've got like a C4 defense patch or something, and you want to push that down your bore, just make sure you get it more than halfway down before you quit pounding it. That way the bullet will go ahead and push it out the rest of the way, and you'll be okay. So, of course, I'm kidding. Anybody who doesn't know that, don't put a Velcro patch down your barrel. Sarge was out in the chat asking about putting Velcro patches down the barrel. Gary hunts. Gary hunts his deer with a Nissan Versa. Is that little roller skate looking vehicle?
It's a little 4-door hatchback, or they make a sedan version. That's their smallest car that Nissan makes. Well,
I think it looks like
not the smallest, but it's a compact version. Yeah.
So Stephen Kaiser says the 270 Win is his go-to for rifle season. Mine too. That's what I'm going to be. I've got it scoped. I haven't got it sighted in. You know what? This is a perfect time to show this off to the world. A lot of you have heard the story. Hold on here. A lot of you have heard the story of how this rifle came to me, because Travis is, I can't decide if Travis is either a really good friend or an a-hole.
Well, I mean, I didn't really have anything in the purchase part of it, so you can say whatever you want, but
I'm going to lean towards the really good friend. He did enable or help my wife enable me to have this Browning. But we do have the Vortex scope on there now. It's been bore sighted. That's as far as we've gotten. So I'll be taking this out first chance I get and getting her zeroed in. Sadly, I probably am not going to get to sight that in before I do any deer hunting. I'm probably going to have to hunt at least the first morning with the old rifle, and when the sun comes up, I'll be sighting this one in.
Cool.
But yeah, it's almost done. I'm almost ready to swap out my 243 for the Browning and 270. Yes, Sarge, if the patch gets stuck, you can just shoot it out. That seems legit. And Gary drives the sedan version of the Versa. So have you been deer hunting with that, Gary? Did you get a link? Do you want to jump in here? This chat's I've kind of gone through all the topics I wanted to cover. If anybody has questions out there in the chat, if I've missed any, put them back through. I don't know that I've seen everybody's comment, but if we have missed anything, just put at Sandhill Shooter in front of it so I see it bright orange, or any of the other panelists. You can put their name in there too, and then we can see what's going on. A little bit of election talk going over there in the chat, but we're not going to get into that over here. There's Gary. So
yeah, I'm here.
Welcome, sir.
I'm not much of a deer hunter. That's why I didn't jump in here to start with. Although I have taken 3 or 4 with my vehicles over the years. But.
Well, I've done one, but it turns out I don't think I even killed him.
That 2014 Versa, mine's taken 3. My daughter's taken 2 with hers. So hey.
Well,
man, that's a heck of a Nissan. Makes some really nice vehicles for that.
It's like the deer just come to you when you have
one. Yeah.
What kind of cologne are you wearing to bring those deer to you? Are you wearing the Dominant Buck or the Doe in Estrus, or what are you wearing for cologne?
Buckmaster's Mossio collection.
The Jackie
Hoppy's number 9 or something like that.
I can't.
CLP aftershave.
Yeah, Hoppy's number 9 and WD-40 are the 2 aftershave smells that real men should have, right?
Yep, exactly.
That
and then when you're feeling fancy, a little Old Spice.
That's right. Yes, or Brute.
Get the white bottle out, or Brute. Yes. Get your Brute out.
Yeah,
I got good stuff right there, man.
I don't have any Brute, but I do have Old Spice in my bathroom. Yes, I do.
It might be time to switch over, Gary. Brute for the 2019, huh?
How about high karate? You remember that stuff? Man?
Oh yeah, that was good. I had the generic imposters version of that because that was way out of my budget range at $9.88 a bottle.
We've gone to
Yeah, I know, right?
well, we're gonna
High
end
karate.
the chat once and for all when I say Aqua Velva, and we're just gonna let it die.
Oh, that stuff is so good.
If
That ain't bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it tightens you up, man. That's some good stuff, man.
that's the best stuff ever, that's all you need.
It burns for like a minute, and then after that, you're ready to start your day.
That's right.
Aqua Velva.
Midnight is honestly asking if we wear the deer scent. Anybody who's done some deer hunting, which I guess at this point, Travis, it's you and me. We lost Calaveras here quite a while back.
Yeah.
Have you hunted with scents or used any scents in your hunting?
No, because the two main places that we've gone, the deer, or it's along water line along the Platte River, the deer go by it all day. And then the other one is just going, scouting them, watching them a couple weeks in advance, going out looking at tracks and droppings, and then just going out to those places where they usually congregate in the evening and the morning. And so that's it. No, we haven't had to use any scents at all.
Okay.
Nonsense.
We should talk about a little bit because I can remember here long time back up in towards the top of the chat, somebody had mentioned seeing seeing rubs and scrapes already out this year. And of course, you're going to see rubs, from late summer on because the deer are starting to start.
Yeah.
But for those of you that aren't familiar with the terms, a buck rub, you'll see that on a small tree, a sapling, some brush, something like that. But you'll see where all the bark is rubbed off, about that high up from the ground. And then, about this portion or so where a deer has bent down and rubbed his antlers on that little sapling. And the bark gets all messed up. Sometimes you'll see strips of velvet actually stuck to the tree because when it's time to come off and the antlers are hardened underneath there, then that velvet starts to dry out and it itches. It's kind of like a sunburn starting to peel. That velvet starts to flake off. It gets itchy, and the deer starts rubbing that off of the antlers. And so that's what you see. The more you see, the more bucks there are in the area, typically. And you can tell, if they're fresh or not, or if they're from last year, by looking at the wood underneath. But that's what a rub is when we talk about a buck rub. And it's a good thing to see because you want to see lots of sign of the deer. Unless you don't want a lot of deer in your area, then it's a bad thing to see a lot of rubs.
This is true.
So, now a scrape is a totally different critter. A scrape is usually underneath a low-hanging branch. And Midnight, I see you. We'll maybe cover that here in a second. A scrape is where it's kind of a bulletin board almost of who's who in the area. So what'll happen is a buck will come along and paw the dirt up underneath a low-hanging branch. And he'll paw up the dirt underneath. He'll reach up with his tongue and lick that branch. And there's a scent gland on the bottom of his tongue that he's actually putting his scent on that branch. And then once the dirt underneath is dug up, then he will stand there and all deer on their hind legs have tarsal glands on I guess what I call the middle joint. It looks like an elbow. I know in deer anatomy it's closer to the wrist. But it looks like the back elbow, and there's on the inside of each leg is a gland, a scent gland, and the deer will actually basically they'll pee themselves, they'll pee down their leg, and that urine will run down across that scent gland and pick up their scent, and then get all over the dirt underneath. And any buck that comes along is gonna stop there and sniff that and be like, oh, somebody's already left their calling card here. And then they typically will do the same thing. So it's kind of like if you see a spot where, a tree that every dog that comes along pees on that tree, it's kind of like that. So it's just it's a spot where all the deer let each other know who's in the area, kind of. But if you can found one of those and sit there and watch that it's a good bet that a lot of the bucks are going to keep coming through the area and checking that to see who's around too. because, again, they're territorial. They don't want other bucks in their area having a chance to get in it.
So if there's scrapings along the trail going to the blind I'm going to be in, I'm in a good spot.
You're in a great spot.
Okay, because when I scouted it once before, there were scrapings on the trail going from the road through the field, over the river, through the woods, to where the blinds are. Yeah, and we walked the whole area, and he showed me where his property line was and where the DNR land was and which way we had me get up in the blind. This is where you're going to be, and all this other stuff. And on the way back, he was showing me these scrapings, and I was thinking that they were more where the deer were rubbing their antlers, but he was showing me the deer droppings, and he was saying something like they're all letting each other know where this, who's who or who's here or whatever. So this is the bulletin board you're talking about.
It is.
So now it's making a little bit more sense. Okay.
It's a message board, basically. Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
The place I used to work at was right underneath Chrysler World headquarters, and they own a lot of wooded land up there. Used to all be rural up there, 30 years ago. And there's a creek that runs in a horseshoe shape around the property, and there's a steep drop off, and there are tons of deer in there, and they would come up from the creek and walk the perimeter of work, and we had to plant, I think, like 65 trees along the perimeter because the city said you've got to every tree you took down to put in this building, you got to replace around the perimeter. So these are all saplings. These are 6 foot tall or shorter trees, and they were going out there, and the deer were scraping the trees.
Rubbing.
So, but that must have been them rubbing the velvet off their antlers then, because that whole area around the Chrysler headquarters is just packed with deer.
When they rub their antlers on the tree, that's a rub. And when they paw
okay.
a low-hanging branch, and then they pee on the dirt and they lick the branch, that's a scrape.
Okay, then what I probably saw around my old job was probably rubs, and then what I saw on the way to the blind was scrapes then.
The rub does leave scent because they've got scent glands on their forehead. So that does get rubbed on the tree, but it's not as much a message board. It's not like when you see a bear tree where the bear has come and clawed up the tree. It's different than that on a buck rub. They are leaving scent, but it's also out of necessity to get the velvet off. Whereas a scrape is flat out a challenge. This is my area. I'm the king of this mountain. I dare you to come and knock me off the top. So they're distinctly different. And you'll see a lot more rubs than you will scrapes. I can tell you where one scrape is for sure up on the home place. I know there's got to be more, but I've only ever been walking around and found one that's year after year keeps getting used. And you can tell if it's hot or cold just by the state of the dirt. If the dirt hasn't been disturbed in a long time, it's a cold scrape. And I know that I think it's Tinks. One of the scent companies, Tinks or Special Golden Estrus or some of those, one of them has a kit where you can make a mock scrape, and you can actually hang this little scent bag. It's got a controlled drip on it. It only drips in the daylight hours, and it just keeps dripping scent right into the dirt. And it's got tools in there that you can dig the dirt up with. It'll simulate what it'll look like when a deer hoof goes up. So there's some cool stuff that you can actually get. You can spend a lot of money getting stuff ready for deer season, or not a lot of money. I mean, I've never built a mock scrape, and I've never really needed to. But again, it kind of depends on where I'm going to hunt. I've got opportunities if we have enough people. I've got opportunities to sit still. I've got opportunities to spot and stalk and to walk and block. When I grew up doing.
Yeah, you probably live in a better area for deer hunting, even though we've got an abundance of them here. It's just with the suburbs sprawling out from Detroit, you got to go further and further and further out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas you've got all that open land, but I mean, you also have the other, topography to, you know, you were talking in a previous show about all the different landforms that you have in Nebraska that you got to kind of go around the whole state to see. And
honestly,
I mean,
you
probably just have a better overall hunting atmosphere there.
I don't know. Better is relative. I think it's better. I wouldn't want to hunt in heavy timber, but I also don't want to hunt in high mountains because I'm out of shape. So, you know, that doesn't.
Yeah, and see,
hunting in high
the only thing about hunting in high mountains would be dragging that thing out.
Yeah.
How, you know, I guess I would need an ATV, but even then, you can't necessarily get an ATV in some of those places because I love to go hiking in the desert. I love to go up and down all that stuff. And I mean, if I was on one side of the valley and there was a deer or a ram on the other side, and I could, you know, shoot it, great. All right, I could probably get it. How do I go over there and get that thing out? It's like, yeah, that would be tough. That would be tough.
If you're in real rough country and you're walking in and walking out, I mean, you can get a backpack, a frame pack, and you can actually quarter out your deer. And you know, if you're going to mount it, you can actually take the cape. There's a lot of work involved, but you can get it already, bag it up, put it in your backpack, and carry it all day. You can carry a whole deer down in one pack. You know, it's not like an elk where you got to take a quarter at a time because, you know, these things weigh over 1,000 pounds. We're talking about, you know, a couple 100 pounds on the hoof. It's 40 to 50 pounds of deer meat come off a deer, and that's a big deer. And then, you know, the head and cape are going to weigh some too, but you can get the whole thing down in 1 or 2 trips if you've got to walk it, if you had to do it that way and you're not going to take the whole thing at once. But again,
yeah, and see, that would be even more advanced than what I'm attempting to do next week. That would have to be something I would have to, and I mean, don't you have to, like I've seen on Alaska State Troopers where they've got their wildlife troopers and they're out there checking certain things, and they're telling these guys, you've got to keep the head and turn it into the DNR or something. It's like, what?
Well, depending on the state, like in the state of Nebraska, all deer have to be checked in, but during rifle season, you actually have to take it to a check station, and there's lots of, you know, there's a couple in every county, or at least one in every county. So it really doesn't matter where you hunt. You're going to be within, you know, half an hour to an hour's drive of a check station, but you have to take it during rifle season and have either the Game and Parks or one of their representatives. Sometimes it's whoever runs the gas station, you know, can do the check-ins, but they put the official Game and Parks, the little steel tag on it. You know, they'll cancel your permit and write down, you know, which day you took and what species, if it's for Nebraska, you know, whitetail or mule deer, the sex, whether it's adult or fawn, you know, all that stuff. They want to know all that stuff, so they write all that down and cancel the tag, and then put the official band on it.
Well, if I was going to try to break it down to the bare minimum weight, I would have to make sure that whatever part I needed to bring with me to turn in at one of these stations, I definitely want to know the laws, because
the head organs, I believe, have to be still attached to prove the gender of the deer. Because a lot of places, you might have a tag where you have to shoot antlerless. So you can't just haul down 4 quarters of meat and say, well, yeah, this was just a really big doe, and I've got a nice little trophy for my wall that I shot illegally and nobody will know. That ain't the way it works. But I tell you what, guys, I'm gonna quit fighting with my voice. It wants to quit. We've gone a little bit longer than we normally do tonight. So I'm gonna kind of wrap everything up and just kind of let everybody say a few words and any plugs that you want to plug. So we'll start with Gizzard Gary, because he hasn't had a lot of time in here with us. So Gary, thanks for joining us. And anything you want to say before we wrap it up, sir? The floor is yours.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for voting today. Hopefully everything goes all right. Doesn't look like everything's going to, at least in my state. So
we've been talking.
Pardon me?
I haven't even looked at Nebraska while we've been talking.
Well, it looks like we've lost our governor.
Oh.
But otherwise, we're doing all right. I mean, that was going to be a toss-up anyway. I don't want to talk about it because it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to continue on, as all of us will. GizzardGary.com for links to all my social media, and thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, absolutely. Squib, any final thoughts, plugs?
No, not really. Just thanks for some more tips on deer hunting and just I guess I'm glad that there's shows like this that people bring up stuff for newbies like me who aren't really aren't really feeling the buck fever, but I know there's some pseudoscience to it, so it's good to it's good to have people out there with knowledge that are sharing with other people. Thanks.
And I tell you what, anybody who's looking for some really good info on the actual science behind it and the research behind it, the Drurys, Terry and Mark Drury, they've got shows on TV. They've just got a wealth of info out there on their website and with their TV shows and whatnot, kind of taking you through the whole season. The whatever 13 stages of the rut or whatever there are. So if you want to get into the science and you want to get into the kind of the egghead part of it, go check out what those guys have, because there's a ton of information compiled with their stuff. Travis, any final thoughts and any plugs you want to share?
Yeah, no, man. I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much. Guys, get over to gunchannels.com. Get signed up if you're not a member yet. Also, head on over to guntube.org and you can support GunTube over on Patreon. It's a nice little pro 2A social media hosting site that you should go put your gun videos on and your political discussions. It's an awesome place to be. Otherwise, no, man, just I appreciate the invite and make sure you check out Caliber Corner, 8 a.m. Central Time, Saturday mornings over on gunchannels.com.
Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters.
Exactly.
Whatever.
All right. So you're kind of outnumbered at this point, Squib. You're the only one in the Eastern Time Zone that's left.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, my time zone's strong enough that I can take on 3 of you. Centralist.
Your time zone game is strong.
And they call us center for a reason. All the greatest empires, there was always that center, and then everything else radiated out from it. So,
Exactly.
Yep.
So I just had something jump across. Looks like a Gmail came in from radio.com of all places saying the house turned blue. So that might be some cause for discussion for the next few nights. But
somebody get some red paint.
Yeah, hopefully it's not true, but I guess we'll find out. All right. And I am Sandhills Shooter. You can find me right here Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Central Time. Often you can find me on Hit or Miss Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Most of the time you can catch me at least early on Caliber Corner, 8 o'clock Central Time Saturday mornings. If I have to work, I'll be ducking out between 8:30 and 9, but I will be there as often as I can. And anybody who wants to support the channel, feel free to wander over to patreon.com and look me up. I've got a few patrons there, not very many. Right now, I don't even make enough money to cover the people who I give patronage to. So I'm still paying out of pocket overall. I'm definitely not making any money on Patreon, but that's not why I started it. But anybody who wants to support us can do so that way. And you can also find me on Gunstreamer, guntube.org, gunchannels.com, YouTube. I think that's it for now. That's pretty much the only place I'm putting my videos up. But keep watching the channel. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that, and then click the little bell next to the subscribe so you get all the notifications, because you never know when a crazy video is going to come out from Sandhills Shooter. And I think that is about it. So let us. My panel's coming down. The Velcro is very strong with this one. Let's grab Mr. Ike. And we will just end the night saying, bye, Felicia.
Give him the bird.
Adios, Felicia. Te amo, mi amor.